What to do, homies? We back here with some more gooey. This time we are checking out the greatest Pokemon series nobody's ever watched. I did a reaction to one of his videos recently, and in there he was talking about the animation style in Sun and Moon. I remember seeing like little skid bits of this back when it came out, which apparently was 7 years ago. I don't know why I didn't follow up, but I'm obviously interested. Let's go ahead, shut up and turn it up. The greatest Pokemon series nobody watched, including me. So,
Pokemon Sun and Moon. I don't think there's ever been a time when Pokemon fans were so split. Even to this day, 7 years later, people in the comments still complain and rant about how bad the Sun and Moon anime was. I mean, the Pokemon anime back in 2015 was a completely different time. The X, Y, and Z series was hyped up so much by fans because of Ash Greninja, Mega Evolution, and the companions, most notably Serena. But overall, the series is still praised to be one of, if not the best Pokemon series to ever exist according to most fans. Now, I was an avid Pokemon watcher back when Sun and Moon came out, but I do remember having seen most XY episodes up to that point and having just watched the end. Like most people, I was eager to continue my obsession with Pokemon onto the next show. So I hopped on my couch, laid back, grabbed the TV remote, and saw Pokemon Sun and Moon playing on Disney XD. Now I'm all excited and ready to watch the next chapter of Pokemon. The first episode starts and all of a sudden I'm immediately disappointed. What happened to you? Ash, why do you look all... I endured through the first few episodes to wait and see if the story picked up where Kalos ended. But after I found out that this was a brand new story, I decided to do what any sane person would do and go back to watching Pokemon XY. Yes, that's right. It only took a few episodes of suffering to go right back and watch the better series. As I'm relaxing, enjoying the XY series again, I'm reflecting to myself what I had just witnessed. Why didn't they just stick with the cool art style? They literally had it perfect. And the story? Where's Serena? All of these thoughts were circling my 10-year-old brain. Why couldn't they have just stuck with the XY formula? Why did they have to change things up? This, from what I've interpreted throughout many comment sections and others' opinions online, was the way most people reacted upon first watching the Sun and Moon anime. There were so many diehard XY fans going right into Sun and Moon feeling like they had just lost one of their favorite series because it was unrecognizable to them. The animation style was completely scrapped for this really cartoony Yokai Watch inspired animation. It makes sense too because at the time, Yokai Watch was one of Pokemon's biggest competitors, and Pokemon being Pokemon wanted...
Oh, what is that? Yokai Match?
Yokai Watch was one of...
Yokai Watch, ooh. It's a game, and then it's, ooh. I want to watch this. I didn't know they had competition. This is my first time hearing about this. Huh.
Of Pokemon's biggest competitors, and Pokemon being Pokemon wanted to quote-unquote copy their formula for their own. I also heard it might be due to the animators having an easier time of displaying emotion, which if you watch the Sun and Moon anime, you'll know that there's tons of emotions constantly on the characters' faces to entertain the younger viewers. If you couple that with the fact that Ash is no longer battling in gyms, you can see why so many fans, including myself, bounced from the show. And yes, there were a lot of people who hated these changes that happened in Sun and Moon. But hold on, I wouldn't be talking about this if something didn't change. Something happened next which really took a turn for me that changed my whole perspective of the Sun and Moon anime. Okay, so I said I was around 10 years old when I first started watching the Sun and Moon series, and that was around when it first aired on TV. There were probably only like 20 episodes at the time in English. Flash forward 5 or so years later, and I found myself back on another couch, bored with nothing to do, and I had an idea that snuck into my head. You know what? I'm gonna go watch the XY series again. Why? Because it has Goodra. So after a few months of binging the X, Y, and Z series, I came to the end. Pretty impressed as how good it was even all these years later. But then I remembered, wasn't there a Pokemon series that came after the XY series? Yup, Pokemon Sun and Moon. Hey! I clicked on the first episode and PTSD already started rolling in. Not the animation! It hurts! My eyes! But I said to myself, I must endure. Don't give up! Remember what Ash said. Never give up till it's over. And so I continued. I persevered through it. First episode goes by, pretty decent. Second episode, okay, not too bad. Third episode, we got Team Rocket, awesome. Fourth episode, and I'm already singing along with the intro. I can get used to this heat on my skin. Bow. It's been almost half a dozen episodes later, and I no longer feel resentment for the goofy animation style. In fact, I'm used to it. And actually, I got to the point where I'm starting to like it now. Of course,
you know, that's essentially with anything that you watch, right? Obviously, it's going to be a little startling when you first get out, when you start watching it. But I've learned that sometimes you have to go in with low expectations. You know what I mean? Because I imagine did they not show clips of Sun and Moon, like, trailer-ish of what was coming next? Or did they keep it all on a hush until obviously the first episode, which is why so much, because I feel like it might have got taken a lot well if people have seen the little shots about what it was going to look like before jumping into the first episode. The only way I could think of it being like with the backlash that it received is that people didn't see anything about it. And that might have been on purpose, right? Because you don't want to spoil anything. It's a drastic change and everything. But I've learned whenever I'm watching a sequel of anything, no matter how good the first one is, I'm going to go into the second one just expecting something wildly different because I have been burned before. As a matter of fact, I did that same thing with Squid Games 2, right? Which actually turned out to be fantastic. I know some people are kind of back and forth by it, but I had already in the back of my head knew they couldn't go with the same formula they did with the first one because then it gets stale. So they would have needed to involve the story a lot. That's what they did. You know what I mean? Still got some elements of the same stuff that was happening in the first season, but I went in with my expectations reset. So, and I think that is what happened with Gui here. That he got older. He was like, all right, I'm just going to persevere and just kind of reset my expectations to kind of get a newer, fresher outlook on it. But I do understand some people. I mean, look at his face. I do understand.
When it comes down to this animation or XY, I'll still prefer XY, but it works for the series and style of, well, Alola. And speaking of Alola, I mean, talk about an amazing atmosphere. Who doesn't like a tropical island filled with Pokemon? Every episode feels so dreamy, and it's like they say, they're on an actual vacation. I think I love it so much that it inspired me to pack my bags, and now I'm moving to Hawaii. See you later! See you later! Let's go back to the start of the series because I'm skipping over a lot of the problems / things I like about the series. The first big change is the Pokemon School. Now at first the concept of this sounds really boring and stupid, and I agree, but then again, it's actually quite cool. After a while, you start to get attached to this environment and big treehouse school that they're in. Plus, most of the characters are pretty interesting. Besides a few oddballs here and there, I got sucked into this place as if it was Ash's second home. And speaking of home, I mean, they literally give Ash a house to live at with the main man, Professor Kukui, who he can have a whole video of his own dedicated to why he's such a great character in this show. I guess Ash living at Kukui's is another big change because compared to all other series where we're used to seeing Ash traveling from town to town, forest to forest, in this series he just stayed at this house, went to school, and traveled around to the other islands. And I personally admire the change of pace, and it felt like it got old and predictable watching him go on the same route as he does in the games. If you played the games, you can predict where Ash will go just by what gym leader he defeated and what town he's in. Like, you know if he defeated the first gym, he's gonna go the second gym, and then the third gym, and then so on. And Sun and Moon...
You know, it's interesting he says that because I know the whole... Actually, if you really want to think about it, like the whole open world exploration, it really, to my knowledge, started off, where they kind of somewhat ditched that formula was the what was that Pokemon game that came out on GameCube? I think they released that one, and then they released a second one, which was like Shadow Rugia or something like that, right? I really like that format. It wasn't open world. It was still linear, but still, I think that was the inkling idea. And then they ditched it, I think, for a while. And then, of course, Arceus came out where it kind of gave that sense of adventure. And that was when I started paying more attention to the games, right? Wanted to like buy a handheld so I can start playing it because it was fresh. It was a fresh take. So I don't know if I just don't have my years right? That when they released that game, what game? I mean, it was obviously Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon still followed man, I'm just confused right now. I'm just going to keep going.
There are no gyms. There's island challenges and kahunas who are like gym leader type people for each island of Alola, but also different in the sense that you can go to any of them at any time, whenever. And okay, I may not prefer the island kahunas over the gym leaders, however, they are a good change of pace for the series. We can't talk about the Sun and Moon anime without mentioning Team Rocket. Why Team Rocket? Haven't they been around since the beginning? Aren't they just there for the plot anyways? Who cares? I care. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. Team Rocket in this series maximized the humor aspect of things and downsized the annoying aspect of things, which was probably the part that most fans were complaining about for years anyway. Compare Team Rocket from SM to XY and it's a 9-day difference. One shows up in every episode to battle Ash and sometimes capture Pikachu and does weird stuff. The other has fun Pokemon with unique personalities, only shows up when needed, and has the most entertaining Pokemon of all right by their side. And that Pokemon, ladies and gentlemen, is Beware. The amount of times Beware just comes out of nowhere to snatch Team Rocket and fly away while holding them like they're ragdolls is just too many to count, and it never gets old because Beware is so entertaining every time it's on screen. This is by far the best Team Rocket we'll ever see, and they add so much entertainment value to the series, which is another added bonus. What about the companions? Yes, there are a lot, which means not all of them are going to get equal screen time and equal development. But that's okay, because the characters they chose to focus on were really fun and interesting. Besides maybe Lana, whom I think they gave a bit too much attention to, where instead they should have given some other characters screen time who desperately needed more development for us to give a poop about them. Either way, even if not every character was given the best development, they still felt to me as if they were a little family friend group, and Kukui is like their dad who helps them out in their journeys. I know most people love Lily because of the plot she received from the Aether Foundation story and her family, but I think Kiawe was the best. He's like a slightly worse version of Brock, but I mean, it's hard to beat Brock since he's the greatest of all time. Kiawe and Ash just shared this great brotherly bond together, making them really enjoyable to watch. And you gotta love this man Kiawe's rages. He rages over some of the dumbest stuff in Pokemon. It's great to watch. The one major flaw of the series, other than the weird animation, is the lack of battles we see. Usually Ash is constantly fighting other trainers whom he encounters throughout his journey. However, since Ash isn't wandering the forest anymore, he has to go outside and ask permission to battle other people. It also doesn't help that in Alola, nobody is really a serious Pokemon trainer. Probably why Ash won this league, to be honest, but it's still something most fans wish they got to see more of. Now, I personally don't mind him not battling constantly as much as others do because the environment of Alola sucks you in, where you almost want to relax and hang out with your buddies and of course the Pokemon. Alola just has something about it that it's so majestical. Anyway, about the Pokemon Ash caught, we got the legendary Rowlet, who was my personal favorite. Rockruff, who later evolved into a dusk form Lycanroc, only the most special for our boy Ash. Come on, I mean, you know they did this because giving Ash a unique exclusive Pokemon form draws in lots of hype for the series, as we see in XY with Ash Greninja. Litten, who later became Torracat and then Incineroar by the end of the series, was a fun little fire cat with a sad backstory. Poipole, who later became Naganadel, was an Ultra Beast, which was a surprising guess to say the least, and then a Meltan who evolved into a Melmetal for the sake of making Ash OP so he could sweep the Alola League, which was great to see, especially after
I've never seen that Pokemon. I've played Sun and Moon, but I've never seen this Pokemon. You know, I can't recall that game, like all the details. I don't think I replayed it a lot. It might be because of the gym battles. You know, I guess I did miss it and everything. I feel like I did beat it, but I can't remember much about it. But yeah, I don't remember this Pokemon at all.
Ash OP so he could sweep the Alola League, which was great to see, especially after he got robbed at the Kalos League. Finally, I saved the best for last. The greatest Pokemon he had was none other than Solgaleo himself, starring as Nebby. Too bad you forgot to catch this one. This squad was honestly probably Ash's greatest team in terms of personality. Each had their own development that felt well fitted, especially Rowlet. I would even argue that this team is a contender of Ash's best teams in terms of raw power and strength since he won the Alola League with these guys. Now before I go on talking about how bad the Alola League was, let's first talk about Gladion, the main rival. I think Gladion was a well done rival, not as good as someone like Paul, but had the qualities you would expect from someone destined to clash against Ash in the finals. He was an edgy guy who seemed like the Elan type Sigma male who does his own path and he is mostly seen alone. Good thing he wasn't fooled by anyone like Elan was. Oh wait. Whoops. I mean, Gladion obviously was going to be an interesting character regardless because it's Lily's brother and his connections with the Aether Foundation story. But other than that, he had a cool Lycanroc.
Paul was fooled by, I'm forgetting his name, right? The guy with the Dr. Osborne arms and everything, right? The skulls, they're basically the Team Rocket of Sun and Moon. Fooled him. How did he fool
who had a rivalry with Ash's cool Lycanroc, which was great to see because it added more drama to the main fight of the Alola League, and yes, now we can talk about that. So the first part of the league becomes a battle royale, because of course it does. The people who you'd expect to win won and move on to the battling stage. And here's where things get interesting. Probably the most memeable one was the battle between Hau versus Ash, with his Decidueye going up against Ash's overpowered Rowlet. Of course, Ash wins and Rowlet takes Decidueye down by only using 0.1% of his power. Pretty impressive for Rowlet. Ash versus Guzma, the evil gang leader, was a
is this a joke, right? Legendary Owlet. What's going on here? What's going on with this Owlet here? I'm missing something. Or maybe he said something earlier. This is like some type of, is this like a Shaggy joke? You know what I'm saying? Ultra Instinct Shaggy. Like, what's going on here?
Power. Pretty impressive for Rowlet. Ash versus Guzma, the evil gang leader, was a pretty fun one. And then Ash versus Gladiator in the finals was, yeah, amazing. I bet most people thought Ash was gonna choke another league win, but he actually managed to beat everyone. Even Professor Kukui, who I'd say is a tougher opponent because he got to use Mega Tapu Koko. All in all, great league, great rival, great Pokemon, great characters, great story, and this has to be my favorite series. It's either this or XY, and I'm always debating in my head which one I prefer more. Going back to the main point of this video, why is Pokemon Sun and Moon so hated? Well, it's simply because we got a huge drastic change from XY that triggered a lot of fans into not watching the series. Most people acted like I did when I was younger and dipped after the first few episodes to watch XY again. However, upon rewatching the whole series, I can say without a shadow of a doubt this is probably the best series we have ever gotten, period. That is still a controversial opinion to say, but for those who disagree, I encourage you to watch Sun and Moon anime from start to finish and tell me whether or not you still hate the series, because I'd be pretty surprised if you still do. Anyway, that's all I got. I hope you enjoyed my review, and let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Discord right here. Join now.
I can't have an opinion, right? Because I have not watched either. But to go from, you know, hating it or not hating it, just not liking it as much, to it being one of your favorite series, right? That's saying a lot. Have any of you guys changed your mind? Like, did you watch it? Did you go back and watch it like Gui has done here? You know, as I was making my way through Yu-Gi-Oh, because I've seen all of them, I called it quits in the middle of Zexal. I just couldn't get with it. You know, I couldn't. I have not watched anything past that. So what I do, kind of similar to what he did, going back and watching XY, I go back and watch 5Ds because I still think, mind you, I have not seen any of the later ones, but I have a feeling that is not as good as 5Ds. 5Ds was a complete masterpiece, and it's one of the very few times in an anime series where I prefer that over the original, right? And I can't say that about a lot of it. You know, a lot of animes that have different spin-offs and whatnot. But anyways, yeah, I want to know what you guys thought about Sun and Moon. Did you like it right off the rip, or did you have to go back and watch it? You either went back and watched it, liked it, went back and watched it, and it affirmed that you, yes, indeed, did hate it. Dave's out.